With all of that said, we will start with United States Congressman Ted Deutch.
Thank you very much. Sarah, this is a remarkable crowd for a very important discussion. Few Americans have gone untouched by our nation's healthcare challenges. Before reform, my dear friend's 5-year-old son was denied heart valve surgery when the insurance company deemed the life-saving operation optional. To repeal reform would put health insurance companies back in control of our healthcare decisions. Prior to passage, I saw an elderly man storm out of the pharmacy with his medicine sitting on the counter after seeing the price of the prescription. Last year, seniors saved $2.3 billion on prescription drugs. Healthcare reform is about protecting the rights of patients and the financial security of our families. Our health is precious, and access to care for all Americans is, I believe, a moral imperative. But it's also an economic imperative. Healthcare spending is drastically outpacing inflation. In 1990, it was 12.5% of GDP. Today, it's nearly 18%. The average Florida family saw their premiums jump from $6,400 in the year 2000 to $14,000 in 2009, a 98% increase in healthcare costs when median earnings rose 25%. Without reform, the $2.4 trillion we spend on healthcare today would reach $4.3 trillion by 2017, and family premiums would reach $22,000 annually. That is unsustainable. That's why healthcare reform is essential, and we are finally putting the brakes on rising costs. My Republican colleagues have repeatedly voted to repeal the law, but what they would replace it with is not so clear. Remember, just recently, my friends on the other side were in control of all 3 branches of government. During that time, with the same skyrocketing costs, they did absolutely nothing on health care coverage or to control costs. Now, instead of passing laws, what we have seen is name-calling that too often misleads Americans. You've heard all the sound bites before: death panels, government takeover, unelected bureaucrats. Today, as I explain how reform actually works, I'll also point out myths from reality, lies from truth. It will, I hope, be refreshing. Let's start with the idea that this reform is a job killer. Independent experts tell us that this is false. Actually, it's rising healthcare costs that's killing jobs. As insurers hike premiums, small businesses face bad choices: shutting down, dropping coverage, laying off workers. It's a main contributor to why over 1 million Floridians lost health care coverage in the last decade. That's why the Affordable Care Act helps businesses buy coverage with a 35% tax credit that will become a 50% tax credit in 2014. Freeing up money that employers have to spend to provide health care will actually create jobs. Now, there's a lot of talk about why the costs of Medicare and Medicaid are going up and how they're bankrupting our nation. Actually, it's the price of what Medicaid and Medicare pay for, namely health care services, that's bankrupting the nation. It's no different than when food prices go up. Our grocery bills go up, restaurant menus go up, school lunches go up. So what the Affordable Care Act strives to do is break this vicious cycle that's driving costs higher. The cycle goes something like this. Insurance companies hike premiums, so businesses drop coverage, and more people go uninsured. Hospitals then provide more free services. They cover those losses by hiking prices on patients who have insurance. Insurers then respond to higher prices with premium hikes, more copays, and fewer benefits. The cycle goes on and on. If we want to make care more affordable for businesses, for patients, for taxpayers, we've got to slow the rising cost of health care, not ration it, not cut it, just slow how fast the costs rise. There's a difference. In fact, Democratic ideas and Republican ideas in healthcare reform keep prices from rising so fast. Hospitals that run efficiently and deliver better care will be paid more. Insurance companies will be forbidden from hiking premiums without cause. So speaking of insurance, let's address something that even my colleague supports, the need to cover folks with pre-existing conditions. Now, it's politically convenient for some of my friends on the other side to say they support banning discrimination against the sick. However, it won't work without some guarantee that Americans buy coverage before they get sick. We would never force Geico to repair the car wrecks of drivers who were never their customers. To say that you support a goal but then demonize what's needed to achieve it is disingenuous at best, especially when those mechanisms were championed by conservatives for years. Anyone with a calculator can understand that forcing insurance companies to cover the sick without requiring the healthy to share the cost, as they do in Massachusetts, I might add, just wouldn't work. It's carrots and sticks. If you get insurance through your employer, great. If you can't afford it, tax credits will help you afford it. And if you are one of those rare individuals who can afford it but chooses not to, those free riders who force us all to pay more, all of us, for insurance, then you, and only you, will face a penalty. It's essentially a user's fee for living in a country like ours, one where if you get in a car wreck, doctors ask no questions on the way to the operating room. So let's discuss how the law keeps prices affordable for everyone. If you're already insured, you benefit provisions that ban rescissions, lifetime limits, and unjustified premium increases. Insurance companies are now required under this law to spend 80% of premiums on actual medical care, not overhead. If they don't, then they have to give you a rebate. Just last week, we learned that Floridians will be rebated over $113 million by insurance companies for wasting premium dollars. If we repeal this bill, these refunds stop, costs go up, and waste will increase. Now, under the law, the uninsured will be able to log on to websites called insurance exchanges and choose from an array of high-quality, affordable private plans, just like, I might add, members of Congress can do. Prices will be more affordable on exchanges because everyone's risk is pooled together, from the freelance web designer to the self-employed lawyer. Does this sound like a government takeover? To me, it sounds like a functional insurance market. Now, of course, this is a federal law, but it allows states to set up their own exchange. Or, if you are our governor, you have the right to stick your head in the sand, refuse to acknowledge that the law even exists, and allow the federal government to set up an exchange for you. Let me touch on the reforms to Medicare, which have been the inspiration for relentless misinformation. We heard from critics that reform would dismantle Medicare when benefits have actually improved and costs have gone down. Seniors have saved billions of dollars on prescriptions. 33 million of them have received free wellness visits. Medicare Advantage customers have seen their premiums drop. Yet I've heard critics claim that Obamacare cuts $500 billion from Medicare, hurting seniors. This is nonsense. Reforms are simply running Medicare in a smarter way, delivering the same quality care for $500 billion less over the next decade. How? Well, by ending costly giveaways to private insurers, recovering billions of taxpayer dollars lost to fraud, and rewarding providers that work most efficiently. And if these $500 billion in savings are so terrible, why do my Republican friends include them in their own budget? Some would call it hypocrisy to demonize the president for the same savings that you utilize in your own budget. This misleading rhetoric is why our national health care debate turned so toxic so quickly. Last season's death panels have been replaced with a new catchphrase, unelected bureaucrats. You may or may not have heard of the Independent Payment Advisory Boards, a board with patient advocates, doctors, hospital directors, and others nominated by Republicans, Democrats, and the president, who require Senate confirmation. Hardly faceless bureaucrats. These men and women will recommend how Medicare can deliver the same success at less cost. It could be a way to stop hospital infections or reduce red tape, but IPAB is forbidden from rationing, forbidden from cutting benefits, or hiking premiums. Congress can accept these changes or come up with their own. But now IPAB has become a textbook example of how dishonesty has taken over Washington. First of all, critics of IPAB are the same folks who voted to end the Medicare guarantee and replace it with vouchers, and then ask seniors to pay the bill. We're on the right track, my friends. My hope is that the Supreme Court won't step in and derail the progress that we've made. As to the constitutionality, opponents charge the mandate's unconstitutional because it would force consumers into an unwanted transaction. I'll make a deal with those critics. If they can promise that they will never need health care services during their entire lives, then they will be exempted from the health care mandate. In reality, the mandate's not regulating inactivity because the point is that every one of us will need health care, and the mandate simply reforms how it's paid for. Here's where we are. The law enables millions of Americans to keep their health care and get health care for the first time. We're at a critical moment. The fact is, when such an important issue is at stake, when so many vital issues require the attention of Congress, of your representatives, solutions will only come by working together. Bitter partisanship and vitriolic political attacks must fail. In order to succeed, it is common sense and good government that must rule the day. Thank you very much.